Many years ago, I had been watching a documentary on either the first Christians or the early church, something to that effect, and there was something, a haunting image that, although only mentioned and shown briefly in passing, nevertheless deeply affected me and has lingered in my mind ever since. It was an ancient and blasphemous bit of graffiti depicting a man worshipping a crucified figure with the head of an ass. Accompanying the image was the mocking inscription, Alexamenos worships his god. This image, apparently depicting a crucified and donkey-headed Christ, is known as the Alexamenos Graffito, or the Graffito blasphemo. It's thought to date to somewhere around the beginning of the 3rd century CE. It was originally scrawled on a plaster wall near Rome's Palatine Hill, but currently resides in the Palatine Museum. The ancient graffito was discovered in 1857 during the excavation of a building known as the Domus Gallotiana. If the story wasn't already lurid enough, the house once belonged to the infamous Roman Emperor Caligula. He had used it as the imperial palace, and after his assassination it was converted into a boarding school for imperial page boys. The street on which the Domus Gallotiana resides had been walled off to give support to buildings above. It was in a room somewhere in this general area that the Graffito blasphemo was found after being sealed away for centuries. The human figure to the left, apparently raising his arm in worship before the crucified deity, is thought to be the Alexamenos named in the inscription, possibly a young Roman soldier or guard. In the upper right corner above one of the crucified figure's extended arms is a symbol thought to be either the Greek letter epsilon or something known as the Tau cross, Tau being the 19th letter of the Greek alphabet and resembling a capital T. The Tau cross also came to be associated with Saint Anthony of Egypt and thusly is sometimes referred to as Saint Anthony's cross. Why the donkey head, you may be asking? Well, much like in our own time, comparing someone to a donkey or an ass would have been seen as an insult in ancient Roman society. Pagans found the idea of worshipping a man who had been crucified to be contemptible. Crucifixion was a form of capital punishment and was considered the undignified death of a condemned criminal. Another reason for the donkey head may be the misconception ancient pagans had in the classical world that Christians practice onolatry or donkey worship, this being based on yet another misconception that Jews worshipped God in the form of a donkey. In response to the Hellenized Egyptian grammarian and sophist Appian, a Jewish writer states, Appian ought to have had a regard to these facts, unless he had himself had either an ass's heart or a dog's impudence, of such a dog I mean as they worship. For he had no other external reason for the lies he tells of us. As for us Jews, we ascribe no honor nor power to asses. The early church father Origen in his work Contra Celsum mentions how the philosopher Celsus made a similar claim. For the sake of such a monstrous delusion, and in support of those wonderful advisers and those wonderful words which you address to the lion, to the amphibious creature, to the creature in the form of an ass, and to others for the sake of those divine doorkeepers. Another early church father, Tertullian, also reported that Jews and Christians were accused of venerating some sort of deity in the form of a donkey or ass. He also mentions an apostate Jew who supposedly carried with him a caricature of a Christian possessing the ears and hooves of a donkey. The drawing was supposedly labeled Deus Christianorum Onosotes, the God of the Christian begotten of an ass. An alternate theory is that both the graffito and images engraved on contemporary gems are a reflection of actual beliefs held by a heretical sect or sects. I neglected to mention it earlier, but the Alexamenos graffito is actually thought to be one of the earliest depictions of Jesus, possibly meant as a riposte or response to the seemingly mocking graffito. In a chamber next to where the Alexamenos graffito was originally found, there is another inscription in a different hand that simply reads, Alexamenos Fidelis. Alexamenos is faithful. Thank you for listening to this special episode of The Week in Doubt.